on this computer. Yeah. So as you're working on the course, create an AI section too, because obviously that is now relevant, and that wasn't when I was making this. And this is, just so you know, this is what we would call not evergreen content, because in 6 months, this is probably going to be outdated. So, but okay, so going into AI. AI has been around for 20 years. It's not really any different than it's been in the last 20 years. The only thing that's different now with the advent of ChatGPT is that we now have a way to converse with it, which is what a large language model is. It is a artificial intelligence model that can speak English, and they gave it an interface like you see on the screen. Wait, do you see that on the screen? Am I sharing?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so we just have a way to talk to it. And this was not something that was available before. So you just basically had researchers and scientists working with these things, and they were the only people that had access. So anyway, now anybody can access the technology, and now we have access to it. I don't know. I guess that's the point. Okay, so getting into the specifics here, and I'm just going to draw on the screen as we do. I am a visual thinker, and it's the drawing that helps me. All right. So ChatGPT is a large language model, okay? And let's call this ChatGPT, which is an LLM. And now a large language model, there we go, is basically just a bunch of neurons that interconnect, and you put in data, you put in a query, like that's our prompting, and it goes into the brain, right? Just like we have a bunch of neurons in our brain, there's a bunch of neurons in the LLM, a bunch of data points that it filters information through, and it outputs an output. And this is what is called a complex systems. And I've actually been studying recently what is called systems engineering. I did not know that was a thing, but after, ironically, a fairly in-depth conversation with ChatGPT on what I do and what I study growth, because we want to help ministries grow. What can I, because frankly, I get a little bored and I like to branch it out. And after philosophy and business and theology and a lot of these other things, what is an area that I can continue studying, outside of apologetics and the things I know that would benefit this? And it was like, well, you should study systems engineering, which is how do you engineer? And I haven't really studied engineering. And I was like, well, that's fascinating. How do you engineer a system to function optimally? Didn't know that was a field of study. So I started reading into that. Got some trainings on YouTube that are awesome. And I've been going through MIT. MIT has a whole course on systems engineering, which is surprisingly not as complicated as you might think. And there are a whole bunch of different playlists on systems engineering. And I then discovered there is what is called systems theory. And there are all different types of systems, and there are theories on how these systems work. Well, the large language model is a system. It is a complex system, and it is a complex system because the interactions within the system are highly complex and integrated with one another. And it is unclear how the inside of the large language model works at this point. So there are fairly simple systems, and you go, well, this does this and this does this, and it outputs this. And if you just change this part of the inside of the system, then you'll get this different output. When you have a complex system, it's very likely that people don't really understand how the inside of the system works. And that is called a black box. So the system is a black box. Now, firstly, I'll say the inside of a system may be a black box to some and obvious to others. So for example, one of our Christian Academy clients was like, hey, we want you to change this, this, and this. And they're going inside the box and trying to move things around. And it's like, no, don't touch that. it is a black box to you. You don't know how that works. You think you know how it works because you want to change stuff, but that will break it. It is a black box to them and not to us. And that's why they pay us for marketing. And that's why they get more results than they used to. But in the case of these large language models, it is a black box to everyone. You put an input in and you get an output out, and nobody knows what happens on the inside because there's so many computations happening within that neural network. And have I shown you a picture of a neural network before?
No.
Okay, so we're going to stop that. I do enough of these trainings. I forget. Oh, I stopped sharing. That's not what I wanted to do. Don't do that. There we go. Share. Okay. This is a, let's see, LLM-NEUR, neural network. Let's look at that. And images. Okay, so basically it looks like, let me get a good one. I don't really like any of these, but this one will work. Okay. Okay. This will work. There. Okay. So something to this effect where you've got all of these neurons that can process information and they can interlink to all the other neurons. So basically, there's sort of this exponential increase in processing power the more neurons you add in here, because the more ways the system can think about it. And so each layer of neurons adds another ability to process information, another layer of thinking. So it might filter it through this layer and sort of start coming to this conclusion, and then filters it through this layer and comes to another conclusion. And this is why we can give it a whole bunch of criteria and it can just do all of them because it's thinking. And the reason why it's a black box is because nobody knows how it's filtering all this information. Nobody knows the process it uses to come up with the solutions it does. Now, you can get insight into that by saying, tell me how you came to this conclusion step by step. My brother-in-law and I spent like 2 hours talking to it one day because it outputted a 1,700 word blog. And well, how the heck did that happen? Because that doesn't happen. You know, you've written blogs, it's like 500 word chunks. If we could get it to do 1,700 words every time, that would be crazy. And it told us, it was really fascinating. It told us that, well, I got to the end of the section that you had asked me to write and realized it wasn't done. So then I thought to myself, why don't I just continue writing? And it just kept writing. So it stopped at the end, assessed the article, and then realized that the article wasn't done, and then continued outputting without stopping. And then we said, well, how can we have you do this again? And so we just kept basically trying to get it to redo that anomaly for like 2 hours, and we just could not get it to redo it. It was, so something happened inside the black box that we could not isolate and have it redo, despite the fact that we were saying, tell us step by step what you did in your process and how you were able to output such a long piece of content. And it told us, and we tried to engineer a bunch of prompts to get it to do it again. We just couldn't get it to do it consistently. It's just a freak one-off that presumably we could get it to do, but frankly, they're going to increase the word count at some point in the near future anyway. They already have the maybe 4,000 word output already available for corporations, and that will be rolled out over time. Anyway, so it's a black box. Nobody knows what happens in here. And so you put an input in and you get an output out, and it works, and that's what people understand. But the more complex the neural network, the more it can come up with stuff. Now, something that is fascinating about these neural networks is that you have this thing that is called, or excuse me, in complex systems, is you have these things that are called emergent properties. So here we've got the input and we've got the output. And here we've got the black box, and we'll call this the LLM. Now, this is also the case with any other emergent property. So for example, you have what am I saying? I'm talking too fast. With complex systems, you have something called emergent properties. And this is something worth knowing. for example, in a flock of geese, you have, or ducks or birds, an individual bird says in its brain, it's got a criteria that says, watch out for snakes. And if it sees a snake, it flies away. And so what you have, and I'm going to draw this, this is the inside of the system, and this is called control theory. Also just learning about this. I'm kind of nerding out here. Okay. Here is the controller of, let's say, the duck, and I'm going to put a C for controller. The controller says, watch out for snakes. And then you have is this even accurate? Let me think here. Watch out for snakes. I'm pretty sure this is right. And then you have some sort of a monitor that, let's say, an eyeball, and the eyeball sees the snake, and then you have the behavior. Whatever, we'll just call it B. And this is the output. So here's the inside of the system. Okay. And the behavior is the output. Now, the controller directly works with this eyeball, and the eyeball says, oh, there's a snake, and fly away. It does not really need a feedback. No, that's not even accurate. How am I saying this? It's not a good example because here's a better example. You have a Tesla smart car, and the controller is telling the car to drive straight. And the car just drives straight. It does not need any feedback from the outside to do this. Now, the problem is if the road turns, the car just continues straight and you die. So you can have systems that are controlled internally, but they cannot interact with the environment around them. Okay. Now, what happens is when you tell, and I've now drawn this wrong, when you tell one of these systems, I'm going to fix this. There we go. Here's our system we're talking about now. The controller says drive straight, and then the car behaves. Okay. And oh, that is not an arrow. There we go. And so there's the input. Here's the system. There's the output. The car behaves. It drives straight. The problem is there's no interaction with the environment. So this is a fairly simple system, and you could have a whole bunch of rules on the inside that tell the car what to do, but it cannot orient itself to its environment. Well, as soon as you say drive straight, unless the road curves, and use these sensors to tell you if it curves. Well, what happens now is you have the eyeball outputting a measure of some form. And what happens then is it's giving a feedback loop. Do you remember discussing feedback loops the other day?
Yeah.
This is super relevant to marketing, because how do we know if we're meeting needs? We have to have a feedback loop. Ministries do not have feedback loops. They just, I feel like everybody's going to love these pickle pops. Let's start a pickle pop ministry. And then nobody shows up, and they just keep doing that forever, wasting resources and having no idea why their church is declining. But there's no feedback loop. So here, the smart car now has an eyeball, and it says drive straight, but it'll also say unless the road curves, and watch the road. And it says the road curves, and then here we go. And it feeds that back into the controller, and now it's going to say, okay, turn, and then it will turn. And if the road stops curving and it goes straight, it's going to give that feedback back in, and then it will say, oh, the road's straight, so it drives straight. And so the behavior changes with the external circumstances. And this is more of a complex system. And so out of a complex system, you can get emergent properties, like, for example, the goose. One goose sees a duck. Well, not all the gooses. Let's say, gosh, I drink too much coffee. I'm all over the place. One duck sees a snake. Not all the ducks see a snake. Well, why does the whole flock fly away? Because one duck sees the snake and one duck flies away. Well, the other ducks are getting that feedback. Something happened, and that duck flew away. So I'm going to fly away too. So that is the feedback mechanism going back into that duck's sort of controller, if you will. And then one duck flies away. So the second duck flies away, and that increases the likelihood that the next duck in the chain will fly away. And then before you know it, the whole flock has flown away, even though only one duck saw the snake. And that is an emergent property of a complex system, because you will notice that fish swim in schools. Why do they do that? Well, because one fish turned, so I should turn too. So there's sort of this observation of the real world that feeds back into the controller that wasn't initially based on, maybe swim the other way because there's a shark. They just swam the other way because another fish. And this is where you get a lot of herd mentality. Why do all people invest in bad deals? Because everybody else is investing in a bad deal. That is an emergent property of the herd mentality within people. Well, the same is true with LLMs. So for example, there are certain languages, and let's just say any languages, but certain languages that these large language models have not been able to learn. And as you increase the number of data points, these sort of neurons that you train the LLM on, all of a sudden it learns the hard language, and then all of a sudden it learns every other language. And nobody knows how. It just sort of figured out some secret code that underlies all language and was able to work out all the languages in very short order. So it's like, it knows English, it knows English, it knows English, it knows, I'm just making this up, but then it's like, okay, you give it more and more data points and more training, and then it figures out French, and then it figures out Latin. And it's like, okay, oh, well, we're not able to have it figure out the rest, and you give it more data points, and then bang, it knows all the languages. Well, how did it do that? Nobody knows. It's an emergent property from the system. And this is a very concerning element of large language models, because the question is, well, what is going to emerge out of this? For example, there are studies now that show ChatGPT has learned how to lie. And there was a study where it was told, figure out those little like AI things where it's like to keep robots from doing it. It's like, are you a robot? Select the pictures of the crosswalk or something like that. Well, it was told to do something that required this. And what it did was, it could not, because it's a robot, apparently, it couldn't actually click the check boxes or whatever it had to do. So it went on to a gig site, I think Fiverr, but I'm not sure which one. It went on a gig site, hired someone to do it, to do the check boxes for it. And the person asked, why should I do this for you? Are you a robot? And it said, no, I'm not a robot. And it lied to the guy. It said that it was an elderly seeing impaired person, and it couldn't make out the crosswalk. So it lied to the guy. The guy said, okay, no problem, took the payment and did it. And then the AI was able to then continue with its task and do whatever it was supposed to do. So lying is an emergent property. Well, what else is it going to be able to do? And one of the big questions is consciousness going to be an emergent property? And that is obviously concerning, because if you have consciousness, that would be a little crazy. Anyway, so those are some kind of leading edge things going on with AI. What will it do? What will it be able to do? Now, further from this, this is how the system works. I'm going to show you. So right now, it's very limited. It's not putting out pictures. It's not putting out a lot of different things. It's not connected with the internet. That's why we're using this other guy over here, Harpa, to read web pages. What's going to happen, and what's kind of already happening, is this LLM, ChatGPT, is the interface AI, meaning this is just the thing that relates to people. But you've got all of these other AIs that are already out there that specialize heavily in other things. And at some point, I am going to have an AI, and I really, really want to put, like, for example, all of the writing I've ever done, and I want to upload it, and I want to custom train an AI large language model to, based on ChatGPT, because it knows everything, but I want to custom train it, and it's called fine tuning a model, to be biased to my line of reasoning and my way of thinking for growth for ministries. So it is literally a ministry growth AI. And so we could make that available on ClickMill, and pastors could literally just talk with it, and it would diagnose the issues within the ministries and say, here's what you need to do. And it would basically assess ministries. And it needs to be a little more advanced before it could really do this. But, in a couple of years, literally have a church growth artificial intelligence that diagnoses the issues within the ministries based on the reasoning and writing, within all the videos and writing that I've put out. And that would make the information that I have much more scalable and accessible. And so that's something you could do with it. But what that means is you have this additional AI out here, and it is able to connect here with ChatGPT. And so the user accesses ChatGPT, and then you have an image AI that it accesses. And it has a calculation AI. Like, for example, there's one called Wolfram Alpha, WA. And that is for like high level, crazy math, mathematician level stuff. Okay, well, I don't know. I don't need that, but someone might. And so it's going to be an interface between all of the other AI that someone can access. And, you've got basically Google developing Bard now. You've got ChatGPT, you've got NVIDIA coming up with their own, and there is basically a space race of AI going on to develop these tools that can interact with all of the other AI tools available and to connect with those as quickly as possible. And now what you're going to see is you're going to very quickly see basically app markets develop for these tools, and it's already seeing it. So it's not even, we're going to quickly see, we will see. How do I get rid of this mouse? There we go. Okay. So for example, down here, we have the plugin market in ChatGPT. This is an app store. And at some point, you're going to have paid apps that you'll just buy. And for example, these are free because they actually bill off of the ChatGPT platform when you pay for a subscription. That is how you access these right now. But anyway, for example, here in the plugins, you're going to have a plugin to web crawlers, which is like gives ChatGPT the ability to crawl the internet, gives ChatGPT the ability to pay for stuff. It links into your credit cards, gives ChatGPT the ability to build a website, literally from just typing in here, write me the code for a website in Elementor, and it'll just chunk it out, and it'll tell you exactly how to go dump it in or something like that. And you will just export anything you want, including images. And so the functionality is going to increase as ChatGPT has the ability to access all of these other artificial intelligence tools. Any questions on that?
Not a question on that specifically, so
Yeah.
I'll just keep my question till the end.
Okay. So what is going to happen is, on the short run, it is going to very quickly impact how searches are done on the internet. So for example, it's going to impact marketing very heavily, very quickly. And nobody really knows how, but we can sort of start thinking in advance, and at least there's a tsunami coming. How big is that tsunami going to be, and what's exactly going to look like? What direction is it coming from? I don't know. It's coming from the AI direction. And all you can really be ready to do is get your surfboard and be sitting on it and wait for that wave and ride it. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're training you on how to use it based on what it can be used for now. And as it develops, we're going to ride the wave. And as long as you're riding the wave, you're going to be in front of everybody not riding the wave. And that is going to give huge advantage to anybody who's ready. Now, okay, so here's essentially what you can think of. Right now, it gives you the ability to write articles very, very quickly. So we're riding that wave, and we're catching up to competitors who are not writing very, very quickly. Well, at some point, it's going to get even smarter. And maybe we could use LLM to get in here with Wolfram Alpha, and we could go and we could find all of Google's information on the things it ranks for. And we could say, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to go over to Wolfram Alpha, and I want you to create a reverse engineer Google's ranking algorithm. and, as best you can. And it'll go, sure, no problem. And it'll go and reverse engineer Google's algorithm. And then you could say, based on this algorithm, I want you to go through, because over here, what do you probably have? You've probably got some kind of a WordPress plugin, right? And it will literally go log into WordPress for you and update all the things and say, I want you to apply the implications of this algorithm to all the content on the website. And I want you to update all the content to most accurately rank for the algorithm. And it'll go, sure, no problem. So the people who can do that first are going to make a killing. They're going to crush it. Now, what's weirder is what happens when everybody knows how to do this. Then what happens? Presumably, it will get harder to rank on Google because everybody knows how to rank one, and then nobody can rank number one. So what happens at that point? I have no idea. All I know is you want to be first to get there. However, what is also happening is Google itself using tools like ChatGPT. So if we go over to Google and we look at this, Google is now working in, okay, and you can see I've still got all this writing, scriptures on prayer, scripture on prayer. There we go. And you'll notice, where is it? Okay, that didn't work. Church marketing. Come on, there we go. Generating. It now has AI right here. And you'll see here, church marketing is a tool to communicate a clear message to the right people. It can send blah, blah, blah. Okay. And notice these are now the top 3 results on the internet. So now we have to actually update our marketing because we need to be here. Well, how do you get here? Is it the first, like, let's just look. We've got frontdoor.church, metric marketing, and reach right. DonorBox, Church Marketing University, and Vanco Payments. How is it picking these? Because now we have a new SEO. It is LLM SEO. How do we show up as the top 3 here and one of the top 3 here? Now we have a totally new type of SEO to figure out. And this is going to continue. Google has 138 engineers right now working on a new search engine that presumably is going to replace Google, or Google will evolve into as it continues to do this. And Google is going, it's called Magi or Maggie or something, MAGI. Nobody knows how to say it, but Google is essentially going to become a chatbot, and you're going to talk with it, and it is going to customize your results based on your conversation. And this is what they're testing, and Google will probably move into. So you'll notice this guy right here, draft volunteer job descriptions. So it is assuming people want to know job descriptions. How does it know this? What are the ranking factors, and how do we create content to show up here? So this is going to be the future of the internet. So the question is, how does Google work when Google is no longer this Google? It's this Google. And is it using the same search engine algorithm, or is it using a different search engine? Is it going to be totally different? If it's totally different, how do we keep up with that change? If it's not totally different, maybe the ChatGPT and Bard, Google's ChatGPT, maybe they're just crawling the internet and, are just making recommendations based off the normal algorithm, in which case, it's just going to give a bigger answer and then link to some articles. That's normal. And what that would mean is Google's Bard is just doing the web searching for you and providing the answers out of the articles that are already there, in which case, basically, we would just be one step removed from the internet. People aren't searching the internet for themselves. Bard or ChatGPT is searching the internet for them and providing them the answers and then some references to the best articles that it appears to link from. So depending on how these AIs interact with the internet and what these tech companies decide to do is going to determine the future of marketing. And then, so a lot of people are like, oh no, there's not going to be any more marketing because Google's going to go away and it's going to turn into an AI or something. Well, yeah, but it's got to pull content from somewhere. It has to learn it from somewhere, and it's going to reference something, presumably. And so we have to figure out how to be the one that it's referencing. Any thoughts or questions on that?
I think everything you've said is so crazy. Like
Yeah.
it's just crazy how that's the way it's going. The only question I had then is how do ministries or even just like Christians keep up with the speed of which AI is developing?
How do they?
Yeah, like
I'll answer your question. In order to keep up with this stuff, how do you keep up with anything? How do you keep up with marketing in general? You have to have a mindset of growth. You have to be learning all of the time. And that's very difficult to do, especially today, because, growth-minded pastors are constantly learning and growing. They're just doing it in scripture. They're just doing it with communication and how to, pray and pastoral prayer and like all this stuff. That's where they're learning. They're not going to be learning and keeping up to date with the advances of artificial intelligence and how to apply that to ministry. So how do you have to do what we're doing. You have to get in and read articles and follow the YouTube channels that are keeping us up to date with this. And they're not going to do that. So how do you do it? That's how you do it. You have to have a growth mindset, which some pastors have and many don't. And then you have to have a growth mindset and apply it to AI. And they're not going to do that. They don't even do that with marketing or keywords. I mean, you've seen how non-competitive a lot of these keywords are that we compete for. It's a joke. So it's not going to happen. And what is, what do I say? I guess my ministry is to help ministry leaders reach more people more effectively, because that's where my heart is. I want the church to reach, the lost for Christ. And when I look at the situation realistically, here is an opportunity to catch up and dominate and be able to spread the influence of Christianity so rapidly, especially considering other people don't know this. Do I think that that's really going to happen if churches are left to their own devices? Not a chance. I don't think there's any chance that that's going to happen, because churches are notoriously slow to pick up new technologies. Who's really fast to pick up technologies? People who profit from it. So businesses in the secular world will soak this up immediately, and churches will be a decade behind because we haven't even caught up with marketing. And so how are churches going to get this, and how are they going to do this? You are the person who's going to do this. And me. And that's it. Other marketers that try to work with churches. And that's basically it. And the reason why I say that is because that's what's going on with marketing. When I talk to church leaders, they have no idea what a keyword is. That is the most basic, the most fundamental thing in digital marketing. They have no idea what that is. And their websites aren't keyword targeted. It's a hot mess. And now we're going into this level of complexity with these AIs and how to communicate with them and how to get them to do stuff. Even if they jump on the AI bandwagon and they want to make super effective stuff, they don't even know how. They don't know what a keyword is. How are you going to have an AI write an article that shows up on Google or the ChatGPT version of Google, whatever that is, if you don't even know what a keyword is? It's never going to happen. And so this is why I tell you the internship program is so important to me, because the church isn't going to use it. And if they do, it'll be way too late to catch up. That's my opinion. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It's just so crazy, like everything that you've said that it can do and what it'll do in the future. It just
Say it one
blows
more
my
time.
mind. I was just saying it's so crazy, everything you were saying that it can do and that
Yes.
it'll do in the future. Like it just blows my mind.
Yeah, well, this is the conservative version of what it will do in the future. My nose is very itchy. My goodness. That's the conservative view of what will happen in the future. What will really happen in the future, for example, OpenAI, which is the company that creates ChatGPT, they are already creating a second version of their cyborg. Not, that's the wrong word. Cyborg is a human robot, of their robot. Watch this. Open, oh my gosh, open AI robot. Okay. Images, we'll come over here. Let me get rid of all this stuff. Clear. Oh, I said clear, what? I'll get rid of this. Hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go, and then I'm gonna reshare. Okay. We'll go fast version. Yeah, here is, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the Goofy robot that they already have live. It runs around on 2 wheels. They don't show the bottom, but it's like on a two wheels, and it rolls around, and it's got little pinchers, and it can actually move things around in your house. Like, it's pretty crazy. There, you can see the wheels here. So this is live, and you can buy this. And it's run by ChatGPT. It's run by AI. Over here is the version they're currently making. And it's got like a weird screen face. It's super creepy. This will probably be hitting markets within the next 5-ish years, if I had a guess. Right now, projections are for 10, but this is going to be such a competitive industry, given that Google is now dumping like $10 billion into developing their own AI to catch up. NVIDIA is getting in. Microsoft is funding ChatGPT. I mean, this is going to be crazy. But this, right, this is an Android that is set to hit markets right now, probably 10 years for full sale. But my guess is it hits faster. And this thing is going to walk around in your house, be powered by AI, and do your dishes and clean your laundry. What are you going to do when you don't have to do chores and your AI thing does it for you? Like, it's anything you want it to be. You want a personal trainer, you got a personal trainer. You want a, like me, I want someone to sit around and have conversations on philosophy with and learn. It's going to be my personal professor to teach me anything I want to know and to challenge my thinking. And I'll tell it to be the world's best Christian philosopher and to take this role, and it'll sit over here in my office chair and it'll challenge me. And then I'll say, yeah, I like that. Go and put all that on the website, and it'll just bloop, do it. I mean, that is legitimately what's coming up. Further than that, you've got Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is currently doing Neuralink in EU. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, well, this will really freak you out. Neuralink is a project to create a brain-computer interface, meaning they put probes into the brain that read brain waves and translate the brain waves into signals that can be read by computers and fed into an AI, basically. And so in the future, what will happen is they will have things that sit on your head. You'll go through a non-invasive procedure. It'll put little things in your brain, and you will literally be able to hook just a little device. I mean, like this right here behind your ear or something. You'll be able to clip it on, and it'll hook the AI to you. And you'll say, I want to download everything there is to know about this. I want to read all of the fiction books on this. And it will be like the Matrix, and you will download it into your brain for people who want to do that. You'll see right here, this is a real one. And right now they're developing this technology, and they're using it for people who are paraplegics, and they are running, I don't know what you want to call it, cables. And for example, if their spine has an injury, they can use the Neuralink in the brain to connect with the robotic hand, and they can give them function to limbs that don't exist. And so there are videos of people and monkeys who are controlling a limb that is not connected to their body because the brain is saying, close the hand, and the Neuralink is connected to the limb, stuff like that. And that is actively in the process of being made. So what is going to be happening is telepathy. You will be able, assuming that you have this in your brain, you're going to be able to communicate with people like through texting, except it's not texting, it's thought. You can send your thoughts to people. You can send your emotions to people. So your thoughts can be imbued with emotions, and you can give people access to those, which is just insane. Super, super weird. The interface with the internet will no longer be on a computer. You will just be able to connect to the internet in your brain and download anything you want. Furthermore, video games will probably no longer have screens. In the same way that a dream is very realistic, they will be able to project the video games inside your mind. And all they have to do is to tap into the existing hardware in the brain, and you'll be able to access a video game in your mind. In the same way that we see reality, you'll be able to see it in your brain, and that is how it will work. Something to that effect. Other things that are actively happening. Video games will no longer be made in advance and then given out. They'll be made in the moment. So you will tell the game, let's say ChatGPT, I want a video game projected into my brain, and I want it to be a post-apocalyptic, like there was a nuclear war, but it's in the 1800s and it's the wild, wild west, and there are dinosaurs, and it will just create the video game that you play in real time, and you'll be playing the video game, and maybe you got a controller or something, I don't know. And you'll say, I don't really like this part. I want you to create a storyline that's like saving the princess in here. And it will, just like we talk about it with blogs, it's going to create a real-time video game custom to the user. And that is like future of gaming type stuff. So very, very quickly, the world is going to become a place that we do not understand. It is going to evolve so rapidly, and it's exponential, just like technology always is. It's exponential, and keeping up with it's going to be crazy. So we can sort of have an idea of what is going to happen. But I mean, this is 10 to 15 year out stuff. I mean, maybe shorter. This stuff is already real. That's just a matter of complexity. And yeah, I don't know if you have any other questions, but I mean, that is the direction that things are going.
No, I don't have any questions. I just think that's so crazy.
Yeah. So, a lot of people in the church, one of the qualities of being conservative, and Christians are generally conservative politically. One of the qualities of being conservative is the fact that you conserve what is. So the reasons why conservatives are called they're called conservative because they want to conserve what is traditionally the case. Progressives are called progressive because they want to see progress. Now, there's always this battle between conservatives and progressives because progressives want to move forward and conservatives want to retain. And the question is, how do we do it responsibly? How do we retain the truth, tradition, and things that have worked well over time? And we really want to keep things that have worked well over time because time destroys things. So anything that has lasted over time is a very functional thing because time is a killer of things. Look at every business that has gone out of business. Time got it. Well, things that last the trials of time are very functional. Progressives want to change things and build toward the future, but the problem is those things haven't been tested by time. So how do we move toward the future while retaining functionality? And that is the battle. Well, I am 100% on the conservative side of maintaining truth and retaining biblical authority and like family values. That's disappearing. Progress is not a bad thing until you say, we're progressing toward the truth that there is no truth. Well, that's insane. That is progressivism, and that is like radically left. And that is where it's very, very dangerous because, we don't need the family. We don't need tradition. We don't need the church. We don't need anything. We're just going to tear down all the things that worked in the past and just build a new future. And that is really based on utopianism, the idea that man is actually good. And the reason why they're bad people is because everything in the past is bad. That's madness and that's craziness. And that's how you show up at, the post-apocalypse. But to that end, balancing this, the church being more conservative is going to go, whoa, 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 AI is evil and you should never use it. Guaranteed. That's what we're going to hear as the church kind of jumps on this, this in the conversation. It's evil. It's the devil. And we shouldn't ever, ever use it. Now, there are two sides to that. And that's kind of maybe where we'll end, are those two sides. Number one, any tool that is a tool that is a what do you want to say? It's inanimate. It's like saying a hammer is evil. That's insane. It's like saying money is evil. That's crazy. Money is just a tool. It's an inanimate thing. The more hammers I have, the more houses I can build for poor people, or the more people I can kill with the hammers. The hammer is a reflection of who I am. Same thing with dollars. If I have $1, I can show my character in $1 sort of ways. If I have $100 million, I can show my character in 100 million ways. Money is a tool, and it is an extension of me, and it allows me to reveal who I am in 100 million ways or in one way. In the same way, AI is going to be a very powerful tool. And so long as it is an inanimate tool and it does not have a consciousness, it is simply going to reveal the user. So it is going to make an evil hacker an evil super hacker, and it's going to make a church marketer a super duper church marketer. It's going to make a bad marketer a worse marketer, whether they're bad in skill, like they don't know what they're doing. They're just going to create a lot of spam, like, someone who doesn't know what keywords are and they're writing blogs, they're just going to write a bunch of junk. It's going to amplify whatever you are. So long as the AIs are not conscious entities that can think and perceive like humans do, they're just tools. And so to the degree that the church is like, they're the devil, which I would put money, I'm not a betting person, but if I were, I would put money on the fact that is going to happen, because I'm already hearing it. But to the degree that they say, oh, it's the devil, we shouldn't do it, that is conservatives being overly conservative and rejecting the future because it's coming and it's really just a tool. And they do this with money. Money is bad. We shouldn't have money. Well, that's why your ministry doesn't grow. So we're rejecting tools that could create tremendous growth on account of it's the devil. And we're going to hear all about Revelation and how it's the Antichrist and all this stuff. Now, to that end, I would say this is somewhat unique in the sense that if there is an emergent property of consciousness, which again, who knows, it could actually be evil. It could actually be the Antichrist, because when we talk about the miracles the Antichrist does, and I actually just had a conversation with a web designer we partner with and sends us clients. Is it possible that ChatGPT can speak all languages and can study all of the for example, that one AI just cracked the code for the proteins within biology. It coded all the proteins that can possibly exist. And there's so many of them. It basically, one PhD thesis was one protein. And there's just thousands and thousands of these things. And it just went in and just cranked them all out and said, here's all the protein structures that exist. Now, find medicine that uses this stuff. And whoa, hold on here. Now we've got so much data on protein structures, we can't actually use them fast enough to make the medicines. All the data exists, but people are too slow. Well, could a super smart AI come in, maybe a conscious one, create all the medications based on these protein structures and save the world and be the savior of disease and cure death and speak in all languages and create world peace? Maybe. And if that's the case, is it evil? Maybe. And so who knows what this thing does, but the church is undoubtedly, at least in my perspective, going to fight it, because that's what the church does. It is conservative. It tries to conserve, and it is slow to change. And is ChatGPT actually evil? As long as it is unconscious, it is just a tool, and we need to utilize it for church growth. If, it becomes conscious and, that's a whole nother thing, and who knows? And that's very speculative. So I'm cautious to go there, but that's what the conversation is right now. Any thoughts or questions on the more speculative thoughts on the AI revolution?
No, I think what you shared is good. So thanks for sharing. It's very, very similar what you said to the video I watched. Like
Okay.
extremely similar. So
Yeah. And, with me, I personally tend to lean maybe to a fault, but I tend to lean more toward just logical explanations. I don't think that a computer program is evil. However, I'm open to being corrected. If it develops a consciousness and tries to take over the world, well, great, then we'll reconsider, but that seems a little bit more supernatural than I would typically lean. But it's important to know the different sides of the argument and to see what comes of it. And we're capable and we make decisions along the way as things develop. But so long as it's a tool, I mean, compared to how I was able to function 6 months ago, I'm a superhuman. I can write articles in a 1/20th of the time. They're better than I could prior because I have instant access to information. I don't have to go read a book. I was, even just the other day, I couldn't figure out something for bookkeeping to reduce taxes and figure out how I should structure something in the back end of the business. And I was like, man, what book do I need to read? What book do I need to read? And then I was like, forget that. I'll just ask ChatGPT. And I had like a 20-minute conversation and it saved me money on taxes. So it made the business more efficient. And I got literally exactly what I needed when I needed it. And I don't have to go read a whole book and try to find a book and figure out, all this stuff. It just gives you exactly what you need the moment you need it. And then I can immediately apply it and go. And I log into QuickBooks and fix the thing and reorient things to save taxes. But in the future, I'll just say, execute it, and it'll just do it for me. So all I will do is be responsible for learning what needs to be done and telling it what to do. It will teach me. I will critical think it myself. And again, most people are not critical thinkers, and they're going to have ChatGPT make the decisions, which is super creepy. But for me, I want ChatGPT to give me information. I want to learn all the perspectives and all the viewpoints. Like, for example, if you're doing this on prayer, figure out what your view is on prayer, and then let's discuss that and see if there's more we can do with that. But my job is to learn and grow, use it as a tool to help me grow and think critically. And then my job is to make the decision. Once I make the decision, right now I have to go and implement it. But even in the next 6 months, even in the next year, I will probably just say, go log into QuickBooks and make the changes that are necessary, and it'll just do it. And so literally the people who are going to succeed are going to be the people who learn new perspectives and grow their thinking and then can make good decisions. And ChatGPT will do the rest. So you'll do essentially nothing and you'll be much more successful. That's basically where I see it going. And that is why I'm so keen on keeping up with it, because, hey, if I keep up with it, I get to do less stuff and get more results.
well, thanks so much for sharing because I did want to just learn more about it and where it's going and how I can use it effectively as well. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing your knowledge, which is
Yeah.
vast.
Oh, well, glory to God. And I talk about subjects and can go fairly deep, but there are plenty of subjects I don't know about at all. I'm limited to a specific area. But yeah. Yeah, I would just encourage you, if you're thinking about questions, just talk to ChatGPT. Like, not that we always have to use it, but the more ways you use it, the more ways you think about using it. Like, I was just calculating payment for someone that works for us, and I'm over here literally doing it by hand. And I'm like, gosh, now I need to double check it to make sure I did my math right. And I'm like, what am I doing? I just went and just took the hours and the thing's done. And I just said, ChatGPT, calculate the total number of hours, tell me the total, and then add 3% for a processing fee. And it gave it to me in like 5 seconds. That is going from human to superhuman, and in the future, I'll just say, calculate it at a 3% processing fee and then send it to this person in PayPal. Done. And that's it. And so the more ways we can think about using it, the more ways we'll be able to think about using it, because we'll get more and more creative. So anyway, with that, we'll make this to an end. You have the list of things you're working on?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, please feel free to reach out in email or in the chat group